Hello, welcome to the European Open briefing for Monday, March the 26th. I'm Rafi Bohajian, currency analyst at XM.com, and we're going to be having a look at what's happening in the currency markets today. The US dollar is somewhat steadier this morning after hitting fresh flows on Friday. Stocks are also managing to turn positive so far at the start of trading on Monday. So we are seeing some easing back of that risk of concerning the possibility of a trade war between the US and China. The euro and the pound are extending their gains this morning, and so is the New Zealand dollar on the back of changes at the RBNZ. Oil prices did hit a 2-month high earlier today before slightly retreating. So now let's have a quick look, take a quick look at what's happening in the markets. We can see dollar index is mostly flat. It is higher against the Japanese yen, back above the 105 level. Euro and sterling both also positive against the dollar, as well as the commodity currencies, the Aussie, the Kiwi, and the Loonie all up against the US currency. Gold is flat, but oil prices we can see retreating rather sharply from their earlier highs. If you look at equities, we can see Europe has opened mostly in the green. We did see Japanese indices closing up as well. But Chinese indices maintained their losses. On Wall Street, we did see a very negative close on Friday, but futures suggest they're set to open higher today. So let's get started with the dollar. We can see dollar yen back above the 105 level after hitting a 60-month low of 104.55 on Friday. The dollar index is trading near 1 month's lows. So those concerns over trade war between the US and China have started to recede slightly on the back of comments by the US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who said over the weekend that he's hopeful that an agreement can be reached with China and this would prevent the tariffs from being enforced. And also another development, the US reached an agreement with South Korea where the two countries amended their bilateral trade deal. So after some concessions by South Korea, the US has now said that it will exclude South Korea from its steel and aluminium tariffs. But apart from the developments on the trade front also coming into focus this week that could impact the dollar are Fed speakers, as a number of Fed policymakers will be making speeches coming hot on the heels of last week's FOMC meeting. Let's now move on to safe haven assets. We can see gold prices hit a 5-week high of $1,350 an ounce late on Friday. So those flight to safety was the main driver of gold, as well as the yen and the Swiss franc last week. Those trade concerns are still weighing on the markets, but there is a bit of positive developments now, so that's helping some positive risk sentiment. The yen is also weaker this morning. We can see last week it made strong gains against most major currencies, including the euro and the Aussie, which we can see here in the chart. But there's a political scandal still going on in Japan that could prevent the yen from sliding further, even if we do see a return to risk appetite. That cronyism scandal is impacting the popularity of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and putting his future as well as his finance minister's future into doubt. This comes ahead of party leadership election later in the year. So one of the key figures in this scandal will be testifying before Japan's parliament tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not his testimony will somewhat jeopardize things for the Prime Minister. Let's now turn to European currencies. We can see those big gains for both the euro and sterling last week. The euro is now trying to get back to the $1.24 level. Sterling briefly spiked above the 1.42 level last week and is now trying to reclaim that level once again. So sterling was boosted last week from several factors. We had that post-Brexit transition deal being reached between the UK and the EU. We also had upbeat data on the UK labour market, as well as retail sales, as well as a hawkish Bank of England policy meeting where 2 MPC members surprisingly voted for a rate hike. So this opens the way for a rate increase in the UK as early as May. So that's why we can see a very bullish sterling at the moment. With regards to the euro, we don't have too many drivers. It's mainly on the back of that weaker dollar. Let's now take a look at the New Zealand dollar, because despite recording some sharp losses at the start of last week, it did manage to rebound strongly against the US dollar, recovering from around 0.7150 to around 0.7280 at the moment. We did have better than expected trade figures for February out of New Zealand early this morning. And also that slightly improving risk appetite is helping the Kiwi as well. But we are seeing also some changes at the RBNZ. The RBNZ now has a new dual mandate of not just targeting inflation, but as well but employment as well. The new governor, Adrian Orr, who takes over as the governor as of tomorrow, did make some remarks suggesting that despite this new dual mandate, it's not going to mean looser monetary policy in New Zealand. He suggested that the central bank already sort of considered employment with regards to setting interest rates, and so this suggests that it's not going to be too much of a change at the RBNZ. So therefore, the RBNZ will likely maintain its neutral bias rather than become slightly more dovish. So that is also helping the Kiwi this morning. And looking at another commodity-linked currency, the Canadian dollar was already boosted last week from renewed optimism on NAFTA, that the US is now taking a slightly softer stance, and therefore a deal is possible. But on Friday, we did see stronger than expected inflation numbers out of Canada. CPI rose to 2.2% year on year versus expectations of 2% and 1.7% in January. And so combined with optimism on NAFTA, we could potentially see another rate hike by the Bank of Canada over the coming months. We can see the loonie currently trading around 1.2850. And quick look at oil prices. Both WTI and Brent crude reached 2 months highs at start of trading earlier today. This comes on the growing possibility that the US may reimpose sanctions on Iran, as well as Saudi Arabia signaling last week that the output deal could be extended beyond 2018, although the gains are being somewhat capped by rising US production. On Friday, we saw the Baker Hughes oil rig count rising to a near 3-year high of 804. WTI has retreated from earlier highs to currently around $65.37 an ounce. It's going to be a very quiet rest of the day, with the main focus turning on Fed speakers, including New York Fed President William Dudley, Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester, and Fed Governor Randall Quarles. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.